The kitchen sink had been dripping for 3 weeks, and at 2:30 in the morning, that steady plink, plink, plink sounded like a countdown timer to my sanity. I couldn't sleep anyway, hadn't been sleeping well since Vanessa started planning this bachelorette trip to Italy with her girlfriends. Something about the whole thing felt off, like a song played in the wrong key. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I slid out of bed, careful not to wake her, and padded to the kitchen of our restored 1920s bungalow. The house had character, which was real estate speak for expensive problems hiding behind charming details. But I loved this place. Every creaky floorboard, every paint chip that revealed decades of previous owners' color choices, every quirk that made it ours. Well, mine now, technically. The deed was in my name. I grabbed my toolbox from the basement workshop and got to work on the faucet. Physical problems had logical solutions, unlike whatever was eating at me about Vanessa's sudden wanderlust. In 8 years together, she'd never shown interest in international travel. Hell, she complained about driving to the next town over for dinner. "Jake, what are you doing?" Vanessa appeared in the doorway, squinting against the under-cabinet lighting. Even at nearly 3 a.m., she looked Instagram-ready. Her auburn hair fell in perfect waves, and somehow her pajamas looked more expensive than my work clothes. "Fixing the drip," I said, not looking up from the wrench. "Couldn't sleep." "You've been weird all week." She padded closer, her manicured fingers drumming against the granite countertop. "Are you having second thoughts about the wedding?" The wedding. Our wedding. Still 6 months away, but she'd been planning it like a military campaign. Every detail scrutinized, every vendor vetted, every dollar accounted for. Except for this trip. "No second thoughts," I lied. "Just want you to have fun in Italy." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Mags and Barb are so excited. We're going to eat so much pasta and drink so much wine." Mags and Barb. Her college friends who treated me like I was something they'd scraped off their designer heels. I'd met them exactly 3 times in 8 years, and each encounter left me feeling like I'd failed some test I didn't know I was taking. "When's your flight again?" 8 a.m. Daniel's picking me up at 6. My hand froze on the wrench. "Daniel?" "Daniel Wyatt. You remember? From college? He's got that travel blog now, and he offered to drive me since it's so early. Didn't want to wake you." Daniel Wyatt, her ex-boyfriend from sophomore year. The trust fund kid who spent his 20s finding himself through extreme sports and Instagram posts from exotic locations. I'd seen his pictures on Vanessa's social media, all perfect abs and perfect teeth and perfectly tousled hair that probably cost more to maintain than my monthly salary. "How thoughtful of him," I managed. "Don't be jealous, Jake. It's just a ride to the airport." Jealous. Right. I wasn't jealous of Daniel Wyatt. I was suspicious. There's a difference, though I couldn't articulate it at 3 in the morning with a wrench in my hand, and my fiancée looking at me like I was being unreasonable. I finished the faucet repair in silence. The dripping stopped, but the feeling in my gut only got worse. 6 hours later, I was loading Vanessa's suitcase into my Honda Civic, the practical car she'd convinced me to buy instead of the classic Mustang I'd been restoring. "We need something reliable, Jake, something that makes sense." Daniel's Range Rover was parked in our driveway like it owned the place. Through the windshield, I could see him checking his phone, probably posting some motivational quote about adventure and living your best life. "You sure you don't want me to drive you?" I asked for the 3rd time. "Daniel's already here, and besides, you hate morning traffic." She kissed my cheek, and I caught a whiff of expensive perfume, not the one I'd bought her for Christmas. "I'll text you when we land." I watched her walk to the Range Rover, her hips swaying in that way that used to make me forget my own name. Daniel got out to greet her, all smiles and casual embraces that lasted just a beat too long. From my front porch, Mrs. Ellsworth was watching the whole scene unfold. The 70-something widow had lived next door for 40 years and had a PhD in neighborhood surveillance. She caught my eye and shook her head slightly like she was disappointed but not surprised. The Range Rover pulled away, and I stood in my driveway feeling like an idiot. Maybe I was overthinking everything. Maybe Daniel was just being helpful. Maybe I was letting my blue-collar insecurities get the better of me. But as I walked back toward the house, Mrs. Ellsworth called out from her garden, "Jake, honey, can I have a word?" I crossed to her property line, where she was roses with the precision of a surgeon. "That boy's been here before," she said without preamble. "What do you mean?" "Daniel. The fancy car. I've seen it here 3 times in the past month, always when you're at work." She looked up at me with sharp blue eyes. "I mind my own business, Jake, but I've got a soft spot for you. That house was falling apart when you bought it, and you've made it beautiful. You deserve better than secrets." My stomach dropped. "You're sure it was him?" "Same car, same pretty boy behind the wheel, and there was laughing, loud laughing, coming from your house around lunchtime." She snipped another bloom. "I'm not saying anything's wrong, mind you, just that secrets have a way of growing in the dark." I thanked her and walked back inside, but the house felt different now, contaminated. I poured coffee with shaking hands and tried to think of innocent explanations. Maybe Daniel was helping with wedding planning. Maybe they were coordinating travel details. Maybe Mrs. Ellsworth was mistaken. But deep down, I knew she wasn't. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. "At the airport. Daniel's being so sweet helping with my bags. Love you." I stared at the message for a long time, then walked to our shared laptop. If I was wrong, I'd feel guilty for snooping. If I was right, Vanessa would have a surprise waiting when she got back from Italy, just like I'd promised. The password to Vanessa's laptop was our anniversary date. Of course it was. She'd never been creative with security, which I'd always found endearing. Now it felt like arrogance, like she never thought I'd have reason to look. Her browser history was a trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to my worst fears. Hotel bookings in Florence, Rome, and Venice. Flights for 2 under her business name. She'd been using Vanessa Rose Travels for her lifestyle blog, which had maybe 300 followers and generated about $50 a month in ad revenue. But these weren't budget backpacker accommodations. The Hotel Davanzati in Florence ran €400 a night. The gritty palace in Venice was even more expensive. This wasn't a girls' trip on a shoestring budget. This was a romantic getaway funded by someone with serious money, someone like Daniel Wyatt. I dug deeper, my software engineering skills coming in handy for once outside the office. Her email revealed a paper trail of deception that was almost impressive in its thoroughness. Separate reservations under different names, car rentals, even dinner reservations at restaurants that required months of advance booking. But the real gut punch was in her photo backup folder. Pictures dating back 3 months. Daniel's apartment. I recognized it from his Instagram posts. Daniel's boat. Daniel's hands on Vanessa's body. Videos that made me want to put my fist through the laptop screen. And it wasn't just Daniel. There were other men. A photographer from her networking events. A personal trainer from the gym she'd joined 6 months ago. A bartender from some upscale place downtown that she claimed to visit for business meetings. I sat back in my desk chair, staring at evidence of a double life I'd been too trusting or too stupid to see. The woman I'd been planning to marry, the woman I'd been supporting financially and emotionally for 8 years, had been treating our relationship like a home base between adventures. My phone rang. Marco, my best friend, and the closest thing I had to a brother. "Hey man, want to grab lunch? I'm between job sites." Marco DeLuca ran a construction crew and had the kind of straightforward worldview I envied. Problems had solutions. Cheating girlfriends got dumped. Life moved forward. "Actually, yeah, I need to talk to someone." "You sound like shit. Everything okay?" I looked at the laptop screen, At a photo of my fiancée in lingerie I'd never seen, in a bedroom I'd never been to, with a man who'd been in my house while I was at work. Not really. Can you come over? On my way. I closed the laptop and walked to the kitchen, where the fixed faucet was working perfectly. At least I could still solve the problems that mattered. Marco arrived 20 minutes later in his work truck, covered in sawdust and wearing a tool belt that had seen better decades. He was the anti-Daniel, stocky where Daniel was lean, practical where Daniel was flashy, loyal where Daniel was apparently a predator. "You look like someone died," he said, accepting a beer from my fridge. Someone did. My relationship. I showed him everything. The photos, the hotel bookings, the timeline of lies. Marco's expression grew darker with each revelation, his knuckles whitening around his beer bottle. Jesus Christ, Jake. How long has this been going on? Months, maybe longer. I've been working overtime to save for the wedding while she's been... I gestured at the laptop. This. You know what you have to do, right? Yeah. I took a long pull of beer. I'm going to cancel everything. The wedding, the venue, the catering, all of it. Good, but that's not enough. Marco's eyes had the gleam they got when he was planning something elaborate. She humiliated you, man. Publicly. Everyone we know thinks you're getting married in 6 months. Everyone's going to want to know why you called it off. I'll tell them the truth. You'll tell them part of the truth, but Jake... He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. She's not just cheating on you. She's stealing from you. That wedding fund? She's using it to finance her affair. That's not just betrayal, that's theft. He was right. I'd been putting away $500 a month for 2 years, building our dream wedding fund. Vanessa had access to the account for wedding expenses, and now I could see where those expenses had really gone. So what do you suggest? Marco's grin was predatory. I suggest we make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person Vanessa Rose really is. And I suggest we do it while she's in Italy, thinking she's gotten away with it. I spent the rest of the afternoon making calls. The wedding venue was surprisingly understanding. Apparently, last-minute cancellations weren't uncommon, though they kept the deposit. The caterer was less sympathetic but agreed to cancel for a fee. The photographer, the florist, the DJ, each conversation was a small humiliation, but also a small relief. By evening, I'd dismantled our entire wedding in a series of phone calls, but Marco was right. That wasn't enough. I opened a new browser tab and logged into my social media account. I'd never been much for posting. That was Vanessa's domain, but tonight felt like the right time to break my silence. I typed carefully, crafting each word. Hey everyone, I wanted to let you know that Vanessa and I have decided to call off our wedding. Turns out her bachelorette trip to Italy is a little more crowded than originally advertised. Thanks to everyone who was planning to celebrate with us. Your friendship means everything, especially now. I hesitated for a moment, then hit post. Within minutes, the comments started rolling in. Friends asking what happened, offering support, demanding details. I didn't respond to any of them. The message was clear enough. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Evelyn. What the hell happened? Call me. Instead, I poured another beer and started planning phase 2. If Vanessa wanted to play games, I'd show her how a software engineer played games. I had her passwords, her accounts, her digital life spread out like a map. And I had something she didn't know about, a vindictive streak that ran deeper than she'd ever imagined. She'd taught me that love was a game. Now I was going to teach her that games had winners and losers. And I didn't plan on losing. My sister Evelyn showed up at 7 p.m. with Chinese takeout and the expression she'd worn when we were kids, and I'd done something spectacularly stupid. Explain, she said, setting the food on my kitchen counter. Evelyn was 4 years older and had been looking out for me since our parents died in a car accident when I was 19. She was a nurse at the regional hospital, which meant she'd seen every kind of human disaster and wasn't easily shocked. But the photos on Vanessa's laptop shocked her. "That manipulative bitch," she said after I'd walked her through everything. "Jake, I never liked her, but I thought she was just shallow and materialistic. I didn't think she was evil. She's not evil. She's just—" I searched for the right word. "Selfish. Everything's always been about what she wants, what makes her happy, what advances her interests. I was just too stupid to see it." "You weren't stupid. You were in love. There's a difference." Evelyn closed the laptop with more force than necessary. "But now you know the truth. What are you going to do about it?" I told her about canceling the wedding, about the social media post, about the plans Marco and I were developing. "Good," she said. "But you need to be smart about this. Document everything. Screenshot all the evidence. If she tries to come back and claim you owe her money or property, you'll need proof of what she was doing." "Already done." "And change all your passwords. Bank accounts, credit cards, everything. She might try to retaliate financially." I hadn't thought of that. But Evelyn was right. Vanessa had access to most of my accounts, ostensibly for wedding planning and household management. But now that access felt dangerous. We spent the next 2 hours systematically locking down my digital life. New passwords, new security questions, new backup email addresses. I removed her from my bank accounts, my credit cards, my insurance policies. With each change, I felt a little more in control. "There's something else," Evelyn said as we finished the last of the lo mein. "Mrs. Ellsworth called me this afternoon." "She has your number?" "I gave it to her last Christmas, remember? In case there was ever an emergency and she couldn't reach you." Evelyn's expression grew serious. "She wanted me to know that she's seen Daniel's car here more than just 3 times. She's been keeping a log." "A log?" "Dates, times, duration of visits. She's got it all written down in a little notebook. Apparently she started tracking it after the 2nd time because something felt off to her." Mrs. Ellsworth, neighborhood spy and unexpected ally. I made a mental note to buy her the biggest fruit basket I could find. "How bad is it?" "Bad. They've been meeting here at least twice a week for the past 2 months, always during your work hours. And Jake?" Evelyn hesitated. "She saw them together in your backyard last week, on the deck furniture you built. They weren't just talking." The deck furniture I'd spent 3 weekends building by hand. The teak chairs and matching table that Vanessa had specifically requested for entertaining. Apparently, she'd been entertaining, just not the way I'd imagined. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Landed safely. Florence is gorgeous, missing you already." I showed the message to Evelyn, who snorted. "The audacity is almost impressive," she said. I typed back, "Have fun. Take lots of pictures." "You're not going to tell her you know?" "Not yet. Let her enjoy her trip. Let her think she's gotten away with it." I pocketed the phone. The longer she stays gone, the more time I have to prepare. Prepare for what? I wasn't entirely sure yet, but an idea was forming. Something poetic. Something that would expose her to everyone who mattered while giving her a taste of her own medicine. "I'm going to give her the same consideration she gave me," I said finally. Evelyn studied my face for a long moment. "Just promise me you won't do anything illegal." "I promise." "Or violent?" "I promise." "Or stupid." That one's harder to guarantee. She laughed despite herself, then pulled me into a hug. "I'm proud of you, little brother. Most guys would either fall apart or do something that would land them in jail. You're being smart about this." After she left, I sat alone in my house, not our house, and planned my next moves. Vanessa would be gone for 10 days. That gave me time to think, to prepare, and to make sure that when she came home, she'd find a very different world waiting for her. I opened my laptop and started researching Daniel Wyatt's social media presence. If I was going to play this game, I needed to understand all the players. Daniel's Instagram was a masterpiece of manufactured adventure. rock climbing in Colorado, surfing in Costa Rica, skiing in Switzerland. Every photo perfectly composed, every caption designed to project an image of effortless cool. But I was a software engineer. I knew how to look beneath the surface. His location tags told a different story. Most of his adventure photos were taken within a few hours of our city. The rock climbing shots were from a local indoor gym. The surfing photos were from a wave pool at a resort an hour away. Even his skiing pictures, when I reverse searched them, turned out to be stock photos he'd purchased and edited himself into. Daniel Wyatt, adventure influencer and trust fund baby, was as fake as his tan. And now, I knew exactly how to use that information. I opened a new document and started typing. If Vanessa wanted to play with fire, I'd show her what getting burned really felt like. The game was just beginning. Day 3 of Vanessa's Italian adventure brought a flood of social media posts. Pictures of her and Daniel at the Uffizi Gallery, sharing gelato by the Arno River, toasting with wine at some overpriced restaurant. The comments from her friends were predictable. So jealous. You two look amazing. Living your best life. If they only knew. I was at work, trying to focus on debugging a particularly stubborn piece of code, when my phone rang. Marco. You see the latest posts? He asked without preamble. Unfortunately. Good, because I've got news that's going to make you feel better. Remember how you said Daniel's been posting all those adventure photos? Yeah? Well, my cousin Tony works at that indoor rock climbing place downtown. Guess who's been a regular there for the past 6 months, taking photos and pretending it's real outdoor climbing? I leaned back in my desk chair, a smile spreading across my face. Daniel Wyatt. Bingo. And Tony says he's not even a good climber. Strictly beginner routes, always with a professional photographer he pays to make him look heroic. The pieces were falling into place. Daniel's entire online persona was as fraudulent as his relationship with my fiancée. There's more, Marco continued. I did some digging into his background. That trust fund everyone talks about, it's real, but it's not his. It's his girlfriend's. His what? Daniel Wyatt has been in a relationship with Madison Pierce for 3 years. She's the daughter of some tech billionaire, and she's been funding his lifestyle while he plays adventure boy on social media. I nearly dropped the phone. Are you sure? Absolutely sure. I found their couple photos on her private Instagram. They're living together in that fancy downtown loft. She just doesn't appear on his public accounts because it doesn't fit his available bachelor brand. This was better than I'd hoped. Daniel wasn't just cheating on me by proxy. He was cheating on his actual girlfriend with my fiancée. Marco, you beautiful bastard. How did you find this out? I may have asked my sister to do some social media stalking. Carmen's got a talent for finding information people don't want found. Carmen was Marco's younger sister, a social media manager for several local businesses. If anyone could uncover digital secrets, it was her. I owe you dinner. You owe me a lot more than dinner, but we'll start there. After work, I drove home with a new sense of purpose. I had ammunition now, real, devastating ammunition that could destroy both Daniel and Vanessa's little fantasy. But I wanted to be strategic about it. I was pulling into my driveway when I noticed Barb and Mags sitting on my front porch, Vanessa's college friends, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else on earth. Jake, Barb said as I approached. She was the taller of the two, with bleached blonde hair and the kind of aggressive friendliness that always made me uncomfortable. We need to talk. About what? About your social media post, Mags chimed in. She was shorter, darker, and somehow even more intimidating than Barb. People are asking questions. I unlocked my front door but didn't invite them in. What kind of questions? About why you called off the wedding, about what you meant by Vanessa's trip being more crowded than advertised. Barb's voice had an edge to it. You're making her look bad. I'm making her look bad? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's interesting. Want to see what's actually making her look bad? I pulled out my phone and showed them one of the photos I'd found on Vanessa's laptop. Nothing explicit, but clearly intimate. Daniel's hand on her thigh at some restaurant, both of them looking very much like a couple. The color drained from both their faces. "Jake," Mag said carefully, "maybe there's an explanation." "Oh, there's definitely an explanation. Your friend has been cheating on me for months, using our wedding fund to finance her affairs and bringing her lovers into my house while I'm at work." I pocketed the phone. "So if people are asking questions, maybe they should ask her." "You don't understand," Barb said, her voice rising. "Vanessa loves you. She's just confused right now. She's been under a lot of pressure with the wedding planning, and Daniel's just an old friend who's been helping her work through her feelings." Helping her work through her feelings? I stared at them in disbelief. "Is that what we're calling it now?" "You're being cruel," Mag said. "She made a mistake, but she doesn't deserve to be humiliated publicly. She made a choice, multiple choices over multiple months with multiple men." I stepped closer to them, and they both took a step back. "And now she gets to live with the consequences." "We thought you were better than this," Barb said. "You thought I was a pushover. There's a difference." They left after that, muttering about how I'd changed, how the Jake they knew would never be so vindictive. They were right about one thing. I had changed. Finding out your entire relationship was a lie had a way of clarifying your priorities. That evening, I got a call from an unknown number. "Is this Jake Carter?" The voice was female, young, nervous. "Who's asking?" "My name is Madison Pierce. I think we need to talk." Daniel's girlfriend, the trust fund princess who'd been unknowingly financing his affair with my fiancée. "I think you're right," I said. We agreed to meet the next evening at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory for what was sure to be an uncomfortable conversation. But as I hung up the phone, I felt something I hadn't experienced in days. Anticipation. The game was about to get much more interesting. Madison Pierce was not what I'd expected. I'd imagined someone like Vanessa, polished, entitled, Instagram-ready. Instead, the woman who approached my table at the coffee shop looked like she'd been crying for days. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, she wore no makeup, and her expensive clothes looked like she'd slept in them. "Jake?" she asked, sliding into the chair across from me. "Thanks for reaching out." She ordered a coffee with shaking hands, then pulled out her phone. "I saw your social media post, and then I started looking into things. And then I found these." She showed me photos that mirrored the ones I'd found on Vanessa's laptop. Daniel and Vanessa in restaurants, in hotel rooms, in situations that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. "How did you get these?" "Daniel's cloud storage syncs to my laptop. We set it up that way last year when he was traveling a lot for his blog." Her laugh was bitter. "I thought it would help us stay connected. Turns out it did, just not the way I intended." I studied her face. "How long have you known?" "I suspected something was wrong about 2 months ago. He started being secretive about his phone, making excuses for why he couldn't spend time together, claiming he had all these business meetings and networking events." She wiped her eyes with a napkin. But I didn't want to believe it. I loved him. Loved? Past tense, definitely. Her voice hardened. I've been supporting him for 3 years. His apartment, his car, his equipment, his travel, all of it funded by my trust fund while he played adventure blogger. And this is how he repays me. What do you want to do about it? Madison's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. I want to destroy him, and I want to make sure your fiancé goes down with him. We spent the next 2 hours planning. Madison had resources I couldn't have dreamed of. Money, connections, and a vindictive streak that made my own look amateur by comparison. She also had something even more valuable: access to Daniel's entire digital life. He doesn't know I have his passwords, she explained. I could lock him out of everything. His social media, his website, his email accounts. Or better yet, I could use them to expose exactly what kind of person he really is. That seems extreme. Extreme? Madison's voice rose, causing other coffee shop patrons to look our way. Jake, he's been using my money to wine and dine your fiancée while lying to both of us. Extreme is the least he deserves. She had a point. What about Vanessa? What about her? She knew he was in a relationship. She's seen pictures of us together on his private accounts. She knew exactly what she was doing. Madison leaned forward, her eyes bright with fury. They deserve each other, and they deserve whatever's coming to them. By the time we parted ways, we had a plan. Madison would handle Daniel's public destruction. She had the access and the resources to make it spectacular. I would focus on Vanessa, using the evidence I'd gathered to ensure that when she returned from Italy, her entire social circle would know exactly what she'd been doing. But first, I had some personal business to take care of. I drove to Vanessa's favorite restaurant, the upscale place downtown where she claimed to have all her business meetings. The same place where, according to the photos, she'd been meeting Daniel and at least 2 other men over the past few months. The hostess recognized me. Mr. Carter, here for dinner? Should I put you down for your usual table? Actually, I wanted to ask you something. My fiancée, Vanessa, has been coming here a lot lately for work meetings. I wanted to surprise her by picking up the tab for her next one. Could you tell me when she has another reservation? The hostess looked confused. Work meetings? Oh, honey, those weren't work meetings. She's been coming in with different men, always very romantic, always asking for our most intimate tables. We all assumed she was... She trailed off, realizing what she'd just said. Dating them? I'm so sorry, I thought you knew. I thought maybe you had an arrangement or something. An arrangement? Right. I thanked her and left, adding another piece of evidence to my growing collection. Vanessa hadn't just been cheating, she'd been flaunting it, taking her affairs to places where people knew us as a couple. The audacity was breathtaking. My phone buzzed with a text from Marco. Emergency. Meet me at the Harbor Master. Now. The Harbor Master was a dive bar near the waterfront, the kind of place where construction workers and fishermen went to drink away their troubles. It was also where Marco and I had celebrated every major milestone in our friendship: high school graduation, my first job, the day I bought the house. I found him at our usual table in the back, nursing a beer and looking grim. What's the emergency? Sit down first. I sat, and Marco slid a manila envelope across the table. Carmen found something else, something bad. I opened the envelope to find printouts of bank statements, credit card records, and wire transfers, all from accounts I recognized: our joint checking account, the wedding savings account, even my personal credit card. She's been stealing from you, Jake, not just using the wedding fund for her affairs, but actively moving money out of your accounts into ones you don't have access to. I studied the documents. Thousands of dollars transferred to accounts I'd never seen before, cash advances on my credit cards, even a second mortgage on my house that I'd never signed for. How is this possible? Identity theft. She had access to all your personal information, your social security number, your bank account details. She's been forging your signature and using your credit to fund her double life. The room started to spin. This wasn't just infidelity anymore. This was fraud on a massive scale. There's more, Marco said quietly. Carmen thinks she's been planning this for a while. The timeline suggests she's been moving money and building a nest egg for months. Jake, I think she was planning to leave you anyway. The Italy trip might not be a vacation. It might be her exit strategy. I stared at the documents, trying to process the magnitude of what Vanessa had done. She hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, she'd systematically robbed me while planning her escape. What do I do? You call the police. This is criminal fraud, identity theft, forgery. She's looking at serious jail time. But even as Marco said it, I knew I wasn't going to call the police. Not yet. Prison would be too easy, too quick. Vanessa had spent months making me look like a fool while she stole my money and my dignity. I wanted her to experience the same humiliation she'd put me through. I wanted her to lose everything the same way I had, and thanks to Madison Pierce, I now had the resources to make that happen. "I need another beer," I said. "Jake, and I need to make some phone calls." The game had just become winner-take-all. Day 7 of Vanessa's Italian getaway brought the first crack in her perfect facade. I was monitoring her social media posts when I noticed something interesting. The comments were starting to change. Instead of the usual, "so jealous" and "you look amazing" responses, people were asking questions. "Where's Jake? Thought you were getting married soon. Who's the guy in all your photos?" My original post had done its work, planting seeds of doubt that were now growing into full-blown curiosity. Vanessa's friends were starting to put pieces together, and they didn't like the picture that was emerging. But that was nothing compared to what Madison had accomplished. I was sitting in my kitchen, reviewing the latest bank statements Marco had uncovered, when my phone rang. "Madison," and she sounded excited. "Turn on your computer and go to Daniel's Instagram," she said without preamble. I opened my laptop and navigated to Daniel's profile. What I saw made me laugh out loud. Every single one of his adventure photos had been replaced with the truth. The rock climbing shots now included captions explaining they were taken at an indoor gym. The surfing photos were labeled as being from a wave pool. The skiing pictures had been revealed as stock photos he'd purchased and edited. But the masterpiece was his most recent post, a photo of him and Vanessa at dinner in Florence, with a caption that read, "Nothing says adventure like using your girlfriend's trust fund to cheat on her with someone else's fiancé. Authentic living. Trust fund baby. Cheating is an adventure." "Madison, you're a genius. I'm just getting started. Check his website." Daniel's adventure blog had been completely rewritten. Every post now included disclaimers about how his adventures were funded by his girlfriend's money, how his photos were staged, and how his entire persona was a carefully constructed lie. How long before he notices? He's been trying to log in for the past 2 hours. I changed all his passwords and set up two-factor authentication using a phone number he doesn't have access to. Madison's laugh was pure vindication. He's completely locked out of his own digital life. What about the legal issues? Can he sue you for this? With what money? I've frozen all the accounts I was funding. His credit cards, his rent, his car payment, everything goes through me. And as of this morning, it's all been suspended. Her voice turned serious. "Jake, he called me an hour ago, crying and begging. He promised to end things with Vanessa, to come home and make it up to me. He actually had the nerve to say it was all her fault, that she seduced him." "What did you tell him?" "I told him to enjoy Italy, because when he gets back, he'll be homeless." While Madison was systematically destroying Daniel's life, I was putting the finishing touches on my own revenge plan. The evidence of Vanessa's financial fraud was overwhelming, but I wanted to give her a chance to explain herself before I involved law enforcement. I also wanted to make sure she understood exactly how much she'd lost. I spent the afternoon making calls to everyone who mattered in our social circle. I didn't gossip or spread rumors. I simply told the truth. Vanessa had been having multiple affairs, using our wedding money to fund them, and committing identity theft to steal from me. The reactions were uniformly shocked and supportive. Our friends had suspected something was wrong, but hadn't wanted to interfere. Now that the truth was out, they rallied around me with an enthusiasm that was both heartwarming and slightly terrifying. By evening, I had offers to help me move Vanessa's belongings out of my house, recommendations for divorce lawyers, and several invitations to accidentally encounter Daniel when he returned from Italy. But the most satisfying call came from Mrs. Ellsworth. "Jake, dear, I hope you don't mind, but I've been talking to some of the other neighbors about what I witnessed. We all think you've handled this situation with remarkable dignity." "Thank you, Mrs. Ellsworth. There's something else. Martha from 3 houses down works at the bank downtown. She says there's been some unusual activity on accounts associated with your address. She can't give me details, of course, but she wanted you to know that you should probably speak with someone in their fraud department. Even the neighbors were looking out for me. The support was overwhelming and made me realize just how isolated Vanessa had tried to make me over the years. She'd systematically discouraged my friendships, criticized my family relationships, and tried to make herself the center of my world. Now that she was gone, I could see how many people had been waiting for me to wake up. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Having the most amazing time. Daniel's been such a great tour guide. Can't wait to tell you about everything when I get home. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, looking forward to it. I've got some stories to share too. 3 days later, I was ready. Vanessa's belongings were packed in boxes and stacked in the garage. I'd changed the locks, updated my will, and transferred the house deed into a trust that protected it from any future legal claims. The bank had opened a fraud investigation and frozen the accounts she'd been stealing from. Most importantly, I'd documented everything: photos, bank statements, witness testimony, digital evidence. I had enough proof to bury her in both civil and criminal court. But I wasn't planning to use it yet. I was planning to give her one last chance to do the right thing. One last chance to confess, apologize, and try to make amends before I destroyed her life, the same way she'd tried to destroy mine. I was feeling generous. It was a feeling that wouldn't last long. Vanessa's flight landed at 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I know because I tracked it online, the same way I'd been tracking every aspect of her Italian adventure for the past 10 days. Daniel's social media accounts were still locked down by Madison, but Vanessa had continued posting right up until boarding, pictures of them looking tanned and happy, captions about life-changing experiences and following your heart. She had no idea what was waiting for her. I was sitting on my front porch when Daniel's Range Rover pulled into the driveway, the same driveway where I'd watched them leave 10 days ago, when I was still naive enough to believe in innocent explanations. Vanessa got out first, looking radiant in the way that only expensive European vacations could provide. Her skin was golden, her hair was lighter from the sun, and she moved with the confidence of someone who thought she'd gotten away with the perfect crime. Daniel stayed in the car, which was probably smart. I could see him through the windshield, talking on his phone with animated gestures, probably trying to figure out why his entire digital empire had collapsed while he was gone. "Jake!" Vanessa practically skipped up the walkway, dragging her suitcase behind her. "I missed you so much. Wait until you see the pictures. Florence was incredible and Rome was even better. Daniel was such a good tour guide, he knew all these amazing little places that aren't in any guidebooks." She reached for the front door handle, then stopped when it didn't turn. "Did you lock the deadbolt? I can't get in." "That's because I changed the locks." Her smile faltered. "What? Why would you change the locks?" "Because I didn't want strangers having access to my house." "Strangers? Jake, what are you talking about?" "It's me." I stood up from the porch chair, and something in my expression must have warned her that this wasn't going to be the reunion she'd expected. "Is it? Because the woman I was engaged to wouldn't spend 10 days in Italy with her ex-boyfriend while lying to my face about it." The color drained from her cheeks. "Jake, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You've gotten very good at explanations over the past few months. Business meetings that were actually dates, work trips that were actually affairs, wedding expenses that were actually theft." "Theft? What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the bank statements Marco had uncovered. $73,000, Vanessa. That's how much you've stolen from me over the past 6 months. Identity theft, credit card fraud, forged signatures on loan applications. She stared at the phone, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Jake, you don't understand. I was going to pay it back. I just needed some time to figure things out." "Figure what out? How to rob me more efficiently?" I was confused. The wedding planning was so stressful, and Daniel reached out when I was feeling overwhelmed, and things just happened. Things just happened? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Multiple affairs with multiple men just happened. Stealing my identity just happened. Using our wedding fund to finance your cheating just happened. Behind her, Daniel was getting out of his car, probably realizing that his ride was about to become very uncomfortable. "Vanessa, we should go," he called out. "Yes, you should," I agreed. "Both of you. But Vanessa, your belongings are in the garage. All of them. Packed and ready to go." "You can't just kick me out. I live here." "No, you don't. You never did. The house is in my name, the mortgage is in my name, and as of yesterday, you're trespassed from the property." "This is insane. Jake, I made some mistakes, but we can work through this. Couples therapy, counseling, whatever you want. I love you." "You love my bank account. There's a difference." Daniel approached cautiously, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Look, man, I know this looks bad, but you have to understand." "I understand perfectly. You're a trust fund baby who's been using your girlfriend's money to finance affairs while pretending to be an adventure blogger. Speaking of which, how's your Instagram looking these days?" His face went white. "You did that?" "I didn't do anything. But Madison Pierce sends her regards." "Madison?" Vanessa looked confused. "Who's Madison?" "His girlfriend," I said helpfully. "The one whose trust fund has been paying for your little European getaway. The one who's been supporting him for 3 years while he's been cheating on her with you." Vanessa turned to Daniel with an expression of pure betrayal. "You have a girlfriend?" "It's complicated." "It's really not," I interrupted. "He's been lying to you the same way you've been lying to me. The only difference is that Madison and I figured it out." "You talked to his girlfriend?" Vanessa's voice was rising to a pitch that probably bothered dogs in the next county. "We compared notes. Turns out we had a lot in common." Daniel was backing toward his car. "Vanessa, we need to leave, now." "Don't you dare walk away from me." She turned on him with fury that would have been impressive if it weren't so hypocritical. "You told me you were single. You told me you wanted to be with me. I told you what you wanted to hear." "The same thing you told me," I added. "Funny how that works." They started arguing in my driveway, their voices carrying across the neighborhood. I could see Mrs. Ellsworth watching from her window, probably taking notes for her next report. Other neighbors were starting to emerge from their houses, drawn by the commotion. Perfect. I let them fight for a few minutes, then whistled loudly enough to get their attention. "As entertaining as this is, you're both trespassing on my property. Vanessa, your stuff is in the garage. Take it and go. Daniel, if I see your car in my neighborhood again, I'm calling the police." "You can't do this." Vanessa was crying now, her perfect makeup running in black streams down her cheeks. 8 years, Jake. 8 years we've been together. That has to count for something." "It does count for something. It counts as 8 years of my life I'll never get back." I walked to the garage and hit the button to raise the door. Vanessa's belongings were neatly packed in labeled boxes. Clothes, books, toiletries, the expensive camera equipment she'd bought with my credit cards. "I kept receipts for everything you bought with my money," I said, as she stared at the boxes. "You can keep it all, but I'll be filing insurance claims for theft, just so you know." She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, pure, undiluted hatred. "I hope you're happy," she spat. "I hope this revenge fantasy of yours was worth throwing away our entire relationship." "Our relationship was thrown away the first time you cheated on me. I'm just cleaning up the mess." Daniel had loaded half the boxes into his Range Rover when his phone rang. He answered it, and I watched his face cycle through confusion, anger, and despair. "Madison cut off my credit cards," he said to Vanessa, "and she's evicting me from my apartment. We need to find somewhere to stay tonight." "Don't look at me," Vanessa snapped. "I don't have any money. Someone cleaned out all my accounts." They both looked at me accusingly. "Those were my accounts," I reminded them. "The ones you stole from. The fraud department at the bank was very interested in your signature forgeries, by the way. It took them 20 minutes to load everything into Daniel's car. 20 minutes of arguing, crying, and shooting accusatory looks in my direction. I sat on my porch and watched, occasionally waving at neighbors who'd come out to witness the spectacle. Finally, they were done. Vanessa approached me one last time, her face streaked with tears and mascara. "This isn't over," she said. "Yes, it is. I'll fight you in court. I'll sue you for everything you have." "With what lawyer? You don't have any money, remember? And I have documentation of every crime you've committed. Identity theft is a federal offense, Vanessa. You're looking at prison time, not a settlement." She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked to Daniel's car without another word. I watched the Range Rover disappear down the street, taking my old life with it. Then I went inside my house, and opened a beer. The game was over. I had won.